the 2026 NBA playoffs just under a month, I'm going to start that again. With the NBA playoffs, with the 2026 NBA playoffs a little over... Come on, Zach, lock in, seriously. With the 2026 NBA playoffs a little under a month away, I thought, why not go through my personal playoff bracket right now? Hello everyone and welcome back to StepBack with Zak, and in today's video, this is my 2026 NBA playoff predictions if the NBA playoffs were to start today. Before we go any further, please don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It is my goal to reach 150 subscribers sooner rather than later. If you don't subscribe, you are going to realize you have no milk for your cereal this morning. So before we get any further into it, I need to let you guys know that this is based off the standings before any games have been played on the 17th of March, 2026, or St. Patrick's Day. So I'm going to pop the current playoff picture on screen right now, as you guys can see, and this is ultimately what I am going to be basing this all off of. So we're going to start with the play-in tournament, and we're not going to go too long into this, but we're going to start with the 9 and 10 matchup, the Warriors versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Now I know that I said, if the NBA playoffs happen today, except that's literally only just for the standings, that's not including injuries. I believe Stephen Curry is going to be back for the NBA playoffs, so I'm going to have the Golden State Warriors winning this 9 to 10 matchup to move on to the next round, and the Portland Trail Blazers being eliminated entirely. Next, the Phoenix Suns versus the LA Clippers. Now, this is a bit of a weird one for me because, I mean, Kawhi Leonard is by far the best player in the series. However, I think the Suns have been the premier team. I think if both teams are healthy, I think that I can see the LA Clippers potentially getting past this one. So I'm going to say the LA Clippers win this matchup to face the Spurs in the first round of the playoffs, and the Phoenix Suns will go on to versus the Golden State Warriors in their final play-in game. And ultimately, I'm going to have... Fuck, this is hard. With the way the Warriors have been rolling recently, and if they can keep that up with Stephen Curry coming back, I can see the Warriors winning. I don't know, this is going to be a real toss-up for me. But because I'm a true believer in Stephen Curry, I think I'm going to go with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors moving on to face the Thunder in round 1. Out east, this should be much easier. We have the Heat versus the 76ers matchup of the 7-8 seeds. This, if the 76ers are healthy and the Heat are healthy, this could be a really damn good matchup. But I'm going to assume health for the 76ers, and I'm going to say that the Philadelphia 76ers end up winning this matchup and go on to face the Celtics in the first round, meaning that the Heat have one more game to play. And then the Hawks and the Hornets, I'm going with the Charlotte Hornets. Hell yeah, why not? Let's go. So the Hawks get eliminated from the postseason, and the Charlotte Hornets go on to face the Miami Heat. And although the Charlotte Hornets have been absolutely clicking recently, I'm still going to go with the Miami Heat winning that game to go on to play the Detroit Pistons in the first round. So, updated standings, I've got out west, the number 1 seed Thunder versus the number 8 seed Golden State Warriors. The number 2 seed Spurs are going up against the number 7 seeded Phoenix Suns. And then you've got the number 4 seed Rockets versus the 5 seeded Denver Nuggets, and the 3 seeded LA Lakers versus the 6 seeded Timberwolves. And then out east, we've got the 1 seeded Pistons going up against the number 8 seeded Miami Heat. You've got the number 2 seeded Boston Celtics versus the number 7 seeded 76ers. And then you've got the 4 seed Cavs going up against the 5 seed Magic, and the 3 seed Knicks going up against the 6th seeded Raptors. Okay, we're going to start out west because the Western Conference is my favorite conference, and I think a lot of people just start with the Western Conference anyway. So, number 1 seeded Thunder versus number 8 seed Golden State Warriors. Thunder in 4 or 5, honestly. Not much to talk about there. Sorry, Steph. The Warriors getting absolutely spanked. Then you've got the Spurs versus the Clippers. Again, Spurs in 5 or 6. I'm going Spurs in 5. They're moving on to the next round. Then the number 4 seeded Houston Rockets versus the number 5 seed Denver Nuggets. And this is probably going to be one of the more intense battles of the first round. But ultimately, I'm going with the Denver Nuggets in 6 games against the Houston Rockets. I just think the Houston Rockets' lack of an actual point guard is going to hold them back. And then the number of bodies that the Nuggets are going to throw at KD is just going to completely shut him out, although he's, of course, going to get his buckets. But I just don't think KD's supporting cast is good enough to help push them past Jokic and Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets are moving on. Next, the Lakers versus the Timberwolves. Now, this is very interesting because last year we saw the Timberwolves absolutely spank that ass against the LA Lakers in literally these exact same seeds. However, Luka Doncic is just looking like a completely different player than he did last postseason, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are on a really weird stretch at the moment. But I think I'm still going to go with the Minnesota Timberwolves this time in 6 games instead of 5 last season. I think Luka's still going to absolutely cook. And then Austin Reeves, I feel like, is going to do better than he did last season, but I just think the athletic switching ability of the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to completely shut out LeBron. Austin Reeves is not going to do what he did this season. And then DeAndre Ayton going up against Rudy Gobert, I don't think that's going to be a very fortunate matchup for DeAndre Ayton. And although I don't like Rudy Gobert, I can see him dominating DeAndre Ayton on that side of the ball. So I've got the Timberwolves moving on as well. Then out east, the Pistons versus the Heat. I'm going to go Pistons in 6, I'm going to say. I just think that the Detroit Pistons are perfectly built for the NBA playoffs. They're scrappy, they're rough, they're savvy on defense, and the Miami Heat just recently have not done well in the playoffs. Ever since 2023, they haven't been that great. So I've got Detroit in 6 games. Then the Celtics versus 76ers, and again, a healthy 76ers could prove to be a bit of a challenge for the Boston Celtics, but if the Celtics can get even 80% of what Jason Tatum is, I can see the Celtics winning this series, and I think this is going to be a pretty closely contested battle. Both of these teams' star power is really impressive, where Sixers have Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and Paul George, and VJ Edgecomb's really stepped into his own. Q Grimes off the bench, and then the Celtics obviously with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum being back, and then Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. I think I'm going to go Celtics in 6. I know I'm saying a lot of 6 here, but Celtics in 6, although I do think this is going to be a very, very intense series. All right, then we have the 3-seeded Knicks versus the 6-seeded Toronto Raptors. I think the Knicks are going to win this series in 5. I think the Toronto Raptors have had an absolutely incredible season, but I just don't think that they've got enough playoff experience as a team. I mean, Brandon Ingram's been to the playoffs, but he didn't do shit there. Scotty Barnes, I don't think, has ever been to the playoffs. RJ Barrett has probably been there maybe twice. I actually have no idea, but Knicks in 5. Shout out Toronto. They've been an incredible story this season, but I don't think it's really going to translate to the playoffs yet. And then finally, we have the 4-seeded Cavs versus the 5-seeded Orlando Magic. I'm going to assume that Franz Wagner is going to be back for this, but ultimately, I have the Cavaliers in 5. And I swear to God, these two teams always seem to match up, even though they didn't match up last year. The Cavs and the Magic are just always a fun watch, and Paolo always seems to turn up, but the new-look Cleveland Cavaliers with James Harden, I think that they're going to win that. Moving back out west, we have the number 1-seeded OKC Thunder versus the 5-seeded Denver Nuggets. This is going to be the series of the playoffs so far, and probably of all time. This is going to be a finals matchup, pretty much. Obviously, they can't match up in the finals because they're both in the Western Conference. However, OKC versus Denver. Now, every single time the OKC Thunder and Denver Nuggets have squared off this season, the OKC Thunder have won. We know that the Thunder won last year in 7 games as well. And ultimately, I think the Thunder are still going to prevail this season. I just think with the inconsistent play of Cam Johnson and Christian Brown clearly being in his head as well, I just don't think that the Denver Nuggets have enough to beat a healthy OKC team. Now, we've never seen these two teams play off fully healthy on either side yet, but recently we did just see the Thunder beat the basically healthy Nuggets, who were only missing Peyton Watson, but I'm going to say Thunder in 7 for this one. That's going to be such a fun matchup. It's definitely going to happen at some point in the postseason. No doubt about it. Then we have the number 2-seeded San Antonio Spurs versus the number 6-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves, and this is another absolutely heavy hitter of a game this year. Every single game that these two teams have played has been intense. It's been a battle, and the Timberwolves, although winning the season series so far 2-1, I say so far, I think that they're done. I think the Spurs are still going to win this series, and I'm going to say that they're going to win it in 7 games. Now, can I see the Timberwolves winning? Absolutely I can. This is just really going to depend on how they guard Victor Wembanyama. If they can shut out Victor Wembanyama, I think that I think that the Timberwolves have a really damn good shot, but I mean, Rudy Gobert cannot guard Victor Wembanyama. Naz Reid's kind of too small to guard Wemby, but Wemby has also been showing recently that he's playing through a lot more physicality and he's playing more minutes. So I just don't think that the Timberwolves beat the Spurs, especially with the way that Stephon Castle's been playing and the calm composure of De'Aaron Fox. Spurs in 7. 2 absolutely insane second round matchups in the Western Conference. Then moving back to the East, we have the number 1 seeded Detroit Pistons going up against the number 4 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, another absolutely insane matchup. And this is a battle between offense and defense. But I think ultimately this is where the Detroit Pistons are going to fall because their offense around Cade is just not good enough to prevail against the elite talent of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And their season series this year has been a really, really intense battle and it's been really fun to watch. However, I just think, like I said, the lack of offensive talent around Cade Cunningham, is going to be their ultimate downfall. I think the Cavs are going to advance over the Pistons in 6 games. Next, we have a very fun matchup between the number 2 seeded Boston Celtics and the number 3 seeded New York Knicks. And I think that, again, this is going to be a really, really fun series. If we get these 4 series this year, oh my God, you bet I'm watching every single game of every single series. But in this one, I am going to go with the Boston Celtics getting their revenge against the New York Knicks, and I've got them winning in 6 or 7 games as well. I'm playing it safe here. Like, I really, really am, but Celtics are going to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just think that their defense is going to prove to be too overwhelming for Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. And then the playoff experience of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard is just also going to prove to be what is ultimately going to get them over the edge. So that is a matchup of the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then out west, we have an OKC Thunder versus San Antonio Spurs Western Conference Finals. And speaking of that, we know that the Spurs have had the OKC Thunder's number all year, winning their season series 4-1, by the way. But I just think with a fully healthy OKC Thunder team versus a fully healthy San Antonio Spurs team, the Thunder's experience is just going to prove to be too much for the San Antonio Spurs. The one game that AJ Mitchell played in this season series is the one that the Thunder dominated the Spurs because they had that secondary ball handler and shot creator to go alongside Shea. And I just think that, as much as I hate to say it, this is where the Spurs get shut out. Now, Victor Wembanyama can have an absolutely insane series because we know he loves versing the OKC Thunder and he always dominates that Chet Holmgren matchup. But I think that Shea is just going to turn into an absolutely different kind of beast, and Stephon Castle, having never been in this situation before, going up against the most elite scorer that is in the NBA today, I just don't think that Steph is going to be able to hold his own against SGA this year. I see the OKC Thunder beating the San Antonio Spurs in 6 games to advance to their 2nd straight NBA Finals. Now, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics, and I can see the Boston Celtics beating the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games to advance to the NBA Finals again. Now, I see this because I just think, again, the experience of the Boston Celtics is going to prove to be too much for the Cleveland Cavaliers, considering that Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen have never made it to the conference finals before. And then, of course, we know that the Boston Celtics literally won the championship 2 seasons ago. I just think that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Derek White are going to prove to be too much for this Cleveland Cavaliers team to handle, as they just don't have the big wings to stop either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. You know, they've got Dean Wade, but Dean Wade can only do so much. And then Jalen Tyson's also a great defender, but they're also going to need Jalen Tyson on the offensive side of the ball, so he's not going to be able to be as dominant defensively as he can be against a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown. And then I just think, Jarrett Allen's proven that he can't really do much in the playoffs. And yeah, now the NBA Finals matchup is something that we thought we were going to see last season, the OKC Thunder versus the Boston Celtics. Now, this NBA Finals matchup could go either way, in my opinion, just because the Boston Celtics, with what they've been able to do this season, have proven all the doubters and naysayers wrong, including myself, by the way. I'll put my hand up and admit I was wrong there. But Jaylen Brown turning into a different kind of monster this season, Jason Tatum being that plug-and-play guy, that Swiss Army knife that can do literally everything. And I'm sure that if the Celtics get to this point in the season, he's going to be even more of his normal self. But I think the OKC Thunder are going to prove to be too much for the Boston Celtics to handle. I have OKC winning the NBA Finals in 6 or 7 games, as I just think SGA is going to prove to be too much for the Boston Celtics defenders to handle. And then with his playmaking leap recently, if the Celtics can shut him down scoring, he's gonna find ways to assist his teammates. Like, absolutely gonna happen. And with the emergence of AJ Mitchell, you know, he's gonna go tit for tat with Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. And then I just think the defense of Alex Caruso and Lou Dort, Casey Wallace, the double big lineup of Ihart and Chet Holmgren is just going to prove to be too much for the Boston Celtics to handle. So ultimately, I have the OKC Thunder winning the NBA Finals in 6 or 7 games. Now that will be all from me for my NBA playoff predictions for the 2026 NBA playoffs. Let me know if you guys agree down in the comments below and who you think is going to win the NBA championship this season. But like I said in the intro, please don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.